It's amazing. The shop has power. Well, sort of. Follow along, grab your popcorn. Let's see how far I've gotten and see what it's taken to get to this point. Hello everyone, welcome back to Maverick Mods, or welcome to Maverick Mods if you haven't seen me before. For those of you who haven't, I'm putting the final touches on a 1,500 square foot, 50 by 30 foot shop I just had built. And in my case, final touches is power. Now, I work on cars. I used to fly airplanes. I'm not really much of an electrical guru. Now, I've got a good friend of mine who's an electrical engineer and knows everything there is to know about electrons. So I defer to him for a lot of my theoretical knowledge. I've also got a licensed electrician who is helping me, coaching me, teaching me about, wiring. And so I'm trying to do as much of this as I can myself. When I reach a point where I kind of hit a snag or something, I either make a frenzied phone call or I've got a little bit of help coming in to help me kind of get over the rough spots. So just keep in mind, I am in no way, shape, or form a professional, and anything you see is for entertainment purposes only. So let's dig in. First things first, here's my stub out for my incoming electric lines. So obviously the breaker panel's got to go here. Here is, well, this is the back side of the breaker panel here. This is a 100 amp sub panel. That's made by AAB. Okay, no problem. But I got to figure out, it's got to go on this wall. And of course it's going to go directly above that, but I don't want it down here. I want to raise it a little bit, and I just want to make it to a comfortable height. So I can see everything. I figured probably about right here would be pretty good. So I'm going to take and make a mark over here, just a real light one there. Do some measuring. So from the ground, that's at, we'll call it 50 inches. I will measure both of my metal studs, I guess you'd call them studs, 50 inches, and start building a frame to be able to hold the box. With my framing done, got my box hung just by the one center there. We're going to level this. Now, I did check through the instructions, and the box can be rotated either direction, so I'm good there. And I wanted the feed in to my lugs to come from the bottom. I didn't want it to wrap all the way around. Just, it seems cleaner to me. Let's get a level on here. That looks good. I'm right on my mark. Secure it. There we go. Okay. I don't think that's going anywhere. And we're still level. That's good. With the box done, I can start thinking about, oh, and don't worry about the distance here on the conduit, because I have an extra piece. So I need to knock out this hole, and I'm just going to set this in loosely for now. I'm just test fitting for now, so I'm not going to glue this in place yet until I get the actual wire. I just want to make sure everything's right. If anything, when I glue that, it should come down a little bit more. And I can always trim it if I have to. So let's knock some of the covers here for these connectors. Connectors or couplers? I can't, these are connectors. Okay. So I'm going to come straight up. So I need to knock 3 out on this side. I'm going to put the 110 on this side. I'm going to put the 220 on this side. So I've got 2 holes right there. That will work. I've got to remember which one of these to knock out. Probably should have done this when this was on the ground. That would have made a whole lot more sense. I know that, again, you guys that do electric all the time, this is probably really easy for you. But I don't do this very often. I'm sure there are tips and tricks on how to make this just super easy. So my connectors should just drop in. Let me grab a couple more of those and see what it looks like. All right, well, I can't put it off any longer. I'm gonna have to run a piece of conduit. For you electrical guys, this is second nature. For me, I got to stop, think, and kind of plan this in my head a little bit more carefully. So the idea is for my different circuits. Now I want everything to look good and look professional and look nice. Now I'm going to have 2 220 circuits. One is going to be dedicated for the air compressor. One will be for 220 outlets for the welders, and that is going to be combined with the lift. Why would I do that? Well, the theory is this is just me in here. There's not going to be a team of people. There's going to be one person working in here. I can never imagine a scenario where I'm going to be welding at the same time I've got the lift going, lifting the car. Just not going to happen. So I think I can combine those 2 circuits with no problem. So that's the 220 side. For the 120 side, or the 110 side, excuse me, I figure I need 3 circuits. One is going to be lights and fans. I'm running LEDs, low amperage draw. In fact, I think I looked and each one of those lights draws 1 amp. So I'm going to have 6 of those. But I can run the ceiling fans off of the same circuit. So I'm going to have one dedicated for primary lights, ceiling fans. So that I've got to account for that. I'm going to have one for one set of outlets, another for another set of outlets, so maybe back of the shop, front of the shop, and I've also got to electrify the garage. I think I can run the branch off of that. So 1, 2, 3. So I've got 3 110 branches, 2 220. So I'm going to have 5 sets of conduits coming out of here. All right. Whoop. Okay. As you can see, I've already got a couple of pieces of conduit in. The reason behind that was I have no idea what I'm doing. So I kind of wanted to experiment first, so I didn't look like a complete idiot. So I'm going to try this one and look like a complete idiot. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of getting everything up. You know what? I need to get on my ladder. That's what I need to do. Because I can't see what I'm doing up there. And I need my pen. So I've already put my bend radius on the pipe. And I did that just by, actually this was the piece for the second conduit that didn't work out well. So I'm going to repurpose that for this one. And all I'm doing is I'm sticking this up here. There. Go in. Much better. I think that'll work. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay. I'm going to clamp this and then start working. Actually, I'm going to get the other ones up and then go from there. Round one of conduit run is complete. I've got, let's see if I can figure them out here. So left or right, 220 will be for the, I think that's going to wind up being the compressor. 220 for outlets, welder, etc., and lift. This is a 110. I haven't figured out whether that's lights or outlets yet. 110, lights or outlet, 110. So, and nothing down here is tight yet. I'm waiting. Actually, I can tighten it all up now. Up, I've got it kind of run up, and you can see where they terminate. Hopefully, you can see where they terminate right up there. So, round two of conduit will take it over to there, and then I'll start make the 90-degree bend and come out this way. Here's the latest update on the conduit I've been running. As I said at the beginning, I wanted this to look as professional as I possibly could. I also did not want, and this is purely aesthetic, I know it cost me more in conduit, it's going to cost me more in wire, but I wanted to do it this way. I wanted to run everything up over and through the trusses instead of running conduit, you know, at waist high or chest high along the walls. I think it's just a cleaner look. So let's take a look at where I'm at. Now, I've run some of this mostly because I kind of wanted to figure out what the heck I was doing before turning the camera on myself and looking like a complete fool. That's not going to happen. I'm still going to look like a complete fool. We all know that. But let's take a look at where I'm at. Of course, my sub panel is down there. I've got all the conduit run up here. Now I'm running 5 feeds. So let's see, from the bottom to the top, the bottom is dedicated air compressor. Second one up is 220 outlets. Third one up is 110 outlets on this side of the shop. I got to be the front side, I guess. Now you notice that the fourth one, of course, there's the coupler right there. The fourth one's missing. That is lights. The fifth one is 110 outlets to the, I guess it'd be the far side of the shop. I'm going to bend my first piece of conduit to come from my coupling up to here. It's going to terminate probably somewhere right around there. We'll deal with that next. But first, let's make our bend here. My first bend is at 71¼ inches. Now that's the center of the bend. Let's measure that out here real quick, and then I'll show you the tool I'm using, which I had to go buy. I did not have one of these because this is the first time I've done this. 71¼ I learned real quick, as well as reading, that it comes in handy to make your line all the way around the conduit. So here's the tool. So this is a conduit bender. It's a hand bender. And basically the pipe comes in here and it makes a mandrel bend anywhere from 1 degree all the way to 90 degrees. Now, up here, I don't know what the exact bend is, but I've figured out that all I got to do is I got to take and start here and bend the tool to where this is straight up and down. And that gives me the perfect bend up there. Question is, where do you put the line? You can't put it here, obviously, because the bend radius is in a different spot. They give you a little bit of an arrow here. That's not where I figured that's not where you put it. There's a little notch here. That doesn't work either. And there's a little star right there. And let's figure out where the best place to put that bend is going to be. So I just took a piece of scrap conduit. I'm trying not to have any scrap, but it's going to have some. So if I put it here, I can tell without even looking that my bend radius is going to be somewhere around here, and I want it to be right on this line. If I put it here, I've already discovered, if I put it on the little notch, It doesn't quite work out too well, but let's put it on this little notch, not the star, but the notch, and see where the bend winds up. So basically you stick this on the floor like this. I'm going to line up with the notch. Come up and you take your foot and you kind of pull at the same time. Now that is where I want my bend to be. So I'm straight up and down. Let's see where my line wound up. This is where my line is, but the actual radius of the bend is about right there. So it looks like to get the radius exactly where I want it to be, I actually need to move to the star. Let's try that. Okay, so I got my pipe bent. Now the problem is I wound up even farther. So it looks to me like I need to actually put that right about right there. Let's see how that works. I'm going to take a big chance. I'm going to use my actual conduit and see what happens. I'm pretty much straight up and down. That's about where I need to be. And that bend wound up exactly, the radius wound up exactly where my mark is. So that worked. Let's take this up and put it in, see how it looks. I've got my first piece of conduit in. Well, I say first, it's first for today. In my coupler's tight, it comes up. Got it clamped right there. I'm trying to keep all of the conduit runs the same spacing, parallel, just so that it looks a little bit more professional. Now, this pipe is 10 feet long and it terminates right there. Next thing we're going to need to do is make a 90-degree bend and bring the conduit kind of out towards the center of the shop. My next piece of conduit will have a 90 in it that's going to terminate, and I'll couple these two pieces together. I bent a 90-degree elbow in my pipe right here and brought it out to my first truss. I'm hanging it right now just with the tie wrap because this is going to be too long, and I've got a junction box that's going to go right here. So I needed to be able to get this in place in order to take this measurement. In order to get a measurement to where to cut my conduit, I needed to install a junction box. And this will make sense here shortly. This is going to be for a single light, but I need a pass-through for the wire connections for that light. Now my conduit here is going to terminate basically right there. So all I have to do is make a mark right there. I know it's a little thick, but it'll work. Now we pull this piece out, we'll cut this and install it permanently. There's probably 100 different ways to cut conduit. You can use a tubing cutter. You could use an angle grinder if you wanted to. I'm just going to use the little, what is this, band saw, I guess? Yeah, this little cutoff saw here. It works, as long as it works. Now once you cut it though, you got sharp edges in the conduit itself. There's a whole bunch of different tools for reaming the conduit out. I just picked this one up. You just drop it in, and this reamer reams both the inside and the outside of the pipe at the same time. A couple of passes with that. I always like to take and run my, I have learned to take and run my finger along here. Make sure there's nothing sharp that's going to snag the wire. You don't want a sharp edge here because that could cut the insulation on the wire eventually. Let's go up and install this permanently. Good morning all. I don't even know what day it is, but I do know it's 22 degrees outside. Gonna try and do a little work in the shop today. Got my little heater out here, which does a really good job of heating the shop up. Problem is, of course, it's a kerosene, I call them torpedo heaters, but it is so loud that I can't film and talk while that thing's running. So where are we at? Last couple of days in between the big Snowmageddon, which was a Nomageddon, but I'm trying to get back to finishing up the wiring in the shop. And by the way, my apologies for the ugly sweater here. This thing is warm, and that's why I'm wearing it, because it's definitely not a fashion statement or a reverse fashion statement. I'm going to catch you up on everything I got done the last couple of days with Conduit. I'm not quite done with the Conduit, but I'm really, really close. And then we'll talk about the plan for today. So I left you guys off the last segment, continuing running my Conduit up through. This is for lights and fans only. I've got one light temporarily hung there just for height and positioning. I've got my Conduit run here to a central junction box, which is kind of right up there. And then it comes off and drops down. And I can hang my lights from each one of the ends of this conduit. So I've got that done. We continue on to the center of the shop here. Same thing. It's kind of hard to see, I know. Over to this side, same deal. And continuing on to over here, where I've got a junction box, which goes to a light at the end of the shop, but also just tees off one time, comes down to my light switch. My sole task for, well, hopefully today, I hope it only takes a day, we'll see how it goes, is to get lights in the shop. Reason behind that is it's cold, and it's going to stay cold for probably another week. With the heater going, the shop warms up pretty well, but I have to keep the doors closed to do that, and it's dark as a cave in here with the doors closed. I'm going to try and hook all the lights up and get them run, but it's going to be a temporary power setup until I get the final power coming into the shop. I spent the last day or two finishing up the conduit and pulling some wire. Over here on the right-hand side of the sub panel, you can see I've got a really, really janky temporary setup with an extension cord, a couple of plugs. I'm just wired in, so I've got lights. I went ahead and ran the 220 lines yesterday. This is number 10 AWG dedicated for the air compressor. This here is number 10 AWG for the 220 outlets. So all of that's done, but we still have 110 volt just shop outlets to do. And so that'll go, where are we at? To this conduit. And this one looks like there's something in this conduit. Well, this is the other end of my fish tape. I'm set up with my spools. So let's go ahead and pull some wire. I ran out of electrical tape the other day. In my various trips to the stores, I just forgot to pick some more up. And I need to kind of secure all three of these wires to my fish tape. Well, blue painter's tape to the rescue. Worst case scenario, it'll work. I'm going to let you guys watch this side while I go up on the platform and pull this through up to my first junction box. I'm up on the platform now, and I'm pulling my fish tape through. I'm going to keep an eye on my wires as they come off the spools to make sure nothing gets tangled up or anything like that. And I'm through. I've got wires up here, so I'm good. I've got you guys with me up on the platform, so if the camera wobbles a little bit, it's because, well, the platform wobbles. And all I'm doing here is taking my fish tape. I'm watching my wire run down at the spools. I'm just pulling. Nothing rocket science about this, I don't think. There we go. All right, so there is my wires. While I'm up here, I can go ahead and remove the fish tape. I'm going to leave, you should leave, I think it's 6 inches inside the junction box for the wires. I'm going to go a little bit more than that just because it gives me a little bit of working room. I probably will tighten that up a little bit when I go to connect everything. But one of the things I don't want to happen So I don't want to accidentally pull, when I'm working down at the sub panel, I don't want to accidentally pull these wires back out. So my solution to this is, rather than doing a bunch of extra wire and tying it off, etc., on the lights and the outlets, the 110 side, I've been using these things. They're called Wagos or Wagos or however they're pronounced. This is a 5-position Wago. 5-position connector. And it's too big to fit back through the conduit. And of course, nice thing about these things is they're just reusable. I'll go into a little bit of detail about how these things work here in a little bit. I'm just going to connect, for now, temporarily, all of my wires to the Wago. There we go. Now, no matter what I do down at the sub panel, I can't physically pull this back through the conduit by accident. So that can hang out there for now until I get the rest of the wiring set up. Next, what I need to do is I need to come up here and I need to run a wire feed down through this conduit down to the outlet, and then continue this way through this conduit to feed the rest of the outlets. When I get all that set up, we'll come back. I'll show you how I'm connecting everything. I've got all of my wire runs through my conduit. Came from the sub panel. This is continuing on to the next box, and which one? This one here goes down to my actual outlets. I've got them all just ended with my 5 connector Wago, just so that they don't, I mean, gravity works, and this thing right here keeps wanting to slide that way. So anyway, I'm ready to connect everything up. So one of the things that I've been doing, I'm not certain whether I need to do it on every single box or not, but I've been doing it anyway, is to go ahead and ground the box itself. So what I did, I made up just out of copper wire, just a jumper that will actually screw into the box itself, and they give you a little kind of a, what you call this thing? They give you a place to screw a ground into. So let me go ahead and put my ground strap in. Put that nice and tight. There we go. Now all I got to do is hook everything up. Nice thing about these Wagos or Wagos or whatever they're called is that they're reusable, and all you have to do to reuse them is basically just flip the little, here, let's grab one. Okay, so here's one. That's what they look like. So the wires go in here in these ends. You got these little levers that toggle up like so. So what you do is you take your wire. Let me find just a wire I've got floating around. There we go. So what you do is you flip your lever up, and whichever slot you want to go in, you take a wire, slide it in there. Now you've got kind of a little window here, so you want to look and make sure that your insulation bottoms out. You just flip the little lever down, make sure it's all the way down, and it's nice and permanent. If you ever need to pull the wire out again, you just flip your lever up, the wire comes right back out, and it's reusable. So that's what I'm using up here. Now, I used the 5 connector Wagos only to keep the wires from pulling back through the conduit. That does not mean that I need to reuse those. And I've got 3 wires. So I've got 3 commons, 3 neutrals, and 3 grounds. So you would think that I could use a 3-position Wago. Let me get the right one out of my pocket here. That was a 5. Here's a 3. Could use a 3, which I can on the common and the neutral. But on the ground, I also want to ground the box. So that means I've got 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to repurpose one of the 5 Wagos, because I don't think they make a 4. At least the electrical store didn't have one when I was there the other day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that loose there. That's my common. I'm going to pop a 3 wire on there, because that's what's going there. Same thing on my neutral here. Let me find my next little, I've got these in my pocket so I don't lose them trying to find them. There we go. Okay. Same drill. Take my neutral loose, And that's there. Now I can take this, since I've already got a 5 on here, I'm going to connect, I'm going to take my neutral loose from here. I know all you electricians are out there probably just absolutely screaming at your computer right now, but you know what? Works for me. 2, now I've got one more here. Neutral on this side. I can take all of that, just make sure all my wires look kind of neat and not all jumbled and tangled up. Now, just pop that onto my jumper to the box, and I can fold all of that up into the box right there. Okay, make sure I leave enough wire for future use if necessary. Shouldn't have to, but you never know. Okay, so my ground is done. Neutrals, I'll do the same thing. Pop it out of the kind of placeholder 5 wire, pop it into my permanent 3 wire, and same thing over here. Pop that in, there we go. All I've got left is my common. And there we are. Okay, get you a close-up of that. Okay, so there's my ground up in here. There's my 3 neutrals. There's my 3 commons. Now all I've got to do is tuck this up in here, put the cover on. Make sure nothing's binding or touching or anything like that. Just take the cover. I don't guess it makes any difference which way it goes. Pop that on. And tighten this up. And it's done. So this junction is complete. All right, guys, we're on the home stretch. Well, we're on the home stretch for the inside wiring. Still haven't started on the outside wiring, and I'll kind of show you why here in a minute. But I'm working on my outlets, actually. It's working on my outlets here for the 110. Pretty simple. I'd made up a series of jumpers here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get my receptacles. Where is my, there it is, screwdriver. Go ahead and get my receptacles made up here real quick, and then we'll see what it takes to go ahead and put them in. So I had to kind of pre-make up my outlets here, because once they're in the cover, you can't get to the screws on the side. So now the reason for the jumpers, back to WAGOs, whatever you want to call them. There we go. Now we're ready to go into the box. By pre-building my outlet like this, it makes it really easy. Let me get these screws out of the way. Figures. It makes it really easy to connect everything up. And my box is grounded. Now we'll take and push that in like so, and then fold all my wiring in. Well, that didn't work. Just hold it in place for a second. And it fell out. Find the screws that I dropped. Let's try this again. Drop the screw again. Today doesn't seem to be my day. Okay, we have a completed outlet. While I was in here working, doing the outlets, I intended to continue on, get the breakers in, get the rest of the outlets and get the breakers in, get the rest of the wiring buttoned up. In the process, this happened. Now, this is Friday afternoon, and I still have to work on editing this video. It just dumped about 3 inches of snow, and it's still snowing just in about the last 2 hours. Didn't expect that much. I mean, we're supposed to get a little bit, but not that much. I will have to say, I'm a little bit peeved at the weather gods. Enough is enough. I will have to say, all this snow and cold, well, it stopped being fun about a week ago. And then 3 inches today on top of that, even more not fun. So I'm ready for a little warm weather. Let's melt this off so I can go out and trench and cut my line for the outside power into the shop. Hopefully I can get this all buttoned up next week. So this is going to do it for this week. Certainly appreciate everybody tuning in every week. Thank you guys for following along on all my adventures, misadventures. Please like, share, subscribe, notify, blah, blah, blah. But you guys know the drill. It does help out. We'll see you guys next week. Everybody, have a great day.